When what really needs to happen when you're older is you need to speak up. You need to speak up. You need to be seen. Sometimes the opinion is totally unpopular. And that too is okay because everything is data, everything is information. But if you yourself are not in the space to receive, and I do believe that's what time wealth gives you, time wealth gives you that space to receive. If you're not in that space to receive, you are going to miss the moment.
Welcome to the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Your guide on this journey is Amy Sylvis, ready to unlock the keys to a life of true abundance. We're diving into everything from financial freedom and optimal health to meaningful relationships, geographic freedom, and everything in between. It's about creating a life rich in experiences, purpose, and joy. If you're ready for the secrets to an abundant life, hit that subscribe button now, and let's get started.
Secrets to Abundant Living podcast community. Welcome to a really special episode. If you haven't met me, my name is Amy Sylvis. I'm the founder and CEO of Sylvis Capital. But more importantly, we have Dr. Diane Dye here with us today, a very special guest, a fellow Trojan, which, we always love. But welcome. Yes, fight on. Welcome, friend. I'm really excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here, Amy. It's just really a pleasure to talk to you about wealth, about abundance, about what it takes to create innovation from those spaces and contribute to the world at large.
Beautiful. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've got a lot in terms of your background that's so impressive, but please let our audience know a little bit more about you.
So, hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Diane Dye. I help founders and CEOs innovate and navigate risk. So, while doing that, I really look toward what does it take to innovate from the people, the process, the perspective, the policy angles. What needs to change in an ever changing world? And I love that we are in such an environment right now that is giving us the opportunity to do this in such
Mm.
an agile, breathing way. And that's why I created my Braver Innovation method.
Wow. Okay. Well, walk us through a little bit of how you got here to creating that method, kind of how you got into this space that you're currently in. People love to hear and be inspired by other women.
Let's rewind
Mm.
back to the first time I was accepted to USC.
Okay. Please.
So I was accepted to USC Annenberg, and 4 months into my master's program, I was just clicking along. I had an equity position at a tech startup.
Uh-huh.
Things were really rolling along, and then I got laid off 4 months into my master's program.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and so did what anyone else would do, is been laid off. You pick up the phone, you call unemployment, and they say, "Oh, you just started your master's program. Well, you're going to have to quit that." And I said, Excuse me?" And they said, "Well, you need to be available for any and all full time work. And you just started your master's program. You don't know if you can handle a new full time job in your master's program. So you're just going to have to quit that." And I am so grateful for the Trojan family
Mm.
because immediately I went to my Trojan family and said, "What in the world do I do?" And I was in this class about communication. I was at USC Annenberg, so communication and organizational change and crisis. And I found myself in the middle of one.
Right.
And my professor said, "Talk to your cohort." USC is really great about cohorting people up, about bonding people.
Right.
So I talked to them and they're like, "Well, what do you really want to do? Like, what do you really want to do?" And I said, "Well, what I really want to do is what I've been freelancing since I got laid off in 2009 from a major video gaming company. I want to consult. I've wanted to consult my whole career. I have the chops for it. I'm getting the pedigree for it. So that's what I want to do." And they said, "Well, then do it." And I looked at the numbers and I said, "You know what? Student loans are for food, they're for housing, and they're for your education.
Mm.
So, okay, okay. all right, let's do this. And I marched myself down to the Secretary of State's office and I started my consulting firm the next day.
Wow. No kidding.
Mm. No kidding. No kidding. And it was based on that class because during that class, I found an angle to my former communications career that I had not even considered because
Right.
I had this deep career before that in marketing communications, in customer success, in the ability to entrench hearts and minds in a brand. And now I was taking that into this realm of, wow, well, how do you do that inside an organization? And what about when things break? And how do you innovate from a place of brokenness? And how do you communicate when CEOs change, when things change? And I found myself so in love with that's initially the direction that I took the firm. So it started out as a what works consultants because I wanted to do what worked for the client, considering the circumstances, and what worked for me at the time was saying no to unemployment and forging my own path.
Right.
So
Right.
initially it was what works consultants, but as I learned, as I grew, as I not only grew the firm, but then decided to continue my education at USC Rossier and get my doctorate in organizational change and leadership, it morphed into people risk consulting because I found that people see innovation through the eyes of risk acceptance, risk avoidance, filling a hole of risk, a hole of pain, things like that. But often in these times of breakdown, it's the people that get the brunt of the blame.
Mm,
It's the people that get the brunt of the blame that, oh, the people aren't adopting AI. The people aren't adopting the change.
yeah.
And so I thought, okay, let's take it that direction. So it's morphed over the years, but where it all started, my own personal moment of everything has just blown up.
Inspiring. Gosh, I mean, talk about taking action, taking advantage of the resources at your disposal, and taking risk, right? That's not easy to jump into when things are in turmoil. That's quite incredible. I feel a little silly asking about how you define abundance and making that transition, but I feel like there are a few things I've been able to pull from just your story thus far. But what does that look like for you as we kind of refer back to the title of the podcast?
Well, going back to the story, that time in my life afforded me was a taste of something that I had not had before. I had always been the 9 to 5 corporate flag girl.
Yeah.
I had been the one who shows up, who works through lunch at my desk, stays late, the whole rigmarole to climb the rungs of the ladder that continue to break as you climb them, it
Mm,
seems. And what I realized in that blank space was I had a new kind of wealth. I had time wealth. So, yes, USC is very rigorous. Yes, I had lots to do there,
right.
but I was also not working full time.
Right.
I was building something new. I was researching really something new at that point of the master's program, but it also kind of went along with my studies a little bit. In fact, it so went along with my studies that my master's thesis was the workbook that's on Amazon right now called Creating Critical Opportunity.
Okay.
So I actually produced a product during my master's program that is still out there today and helped save companies during the pandemic when they were failing to buck business as usual.
Right.
And here I was with something that I had researched alongside. So I had that freedom of space to not have that full time job and have the school, which is what I was going to have. And yes, I would have had the paycheck to go along with it and the equity position and all that good stuff. But what I didn't realize that I needed was time wealth. And I think that time wealth is something that it gets overlooked and it's almost not as prized in the culture of the grind
Yep.
because the culture of the grind tells us work harder, work longer than anyone else. Elon Musk even said, you work 4 times, 5 times, 6 times the hours of everybody else. Your business is going to go 4, 5, 6 times faster.
Can we?
And I'm here to say, no, that's actually not true. You actually collapse time when you make time, because you collapse time when you have that space to be innovative and creative. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see founders and CEOs make is they push their teams so hard that nothing new can come out of the organization. They are just churning and burning on status quo.
Yeah.
And I tell you, with the rate that we are moving right now, with AI, with policy, with just so many changes, founders and CEOs can't afford to do that. They will fall behind no matter how much they think that they're striving forward. They're not going to have that blank space. And if you look at some of the best engineered offices, and I'm looking at Google, they have these spaces, these cultures, this ability to supply that space that allows some innovation to drop in. And they have systems and practices to reward that innovation as well, that entrepreneurship that a lot of founders and CEOs say they want, but when they see it, they say no.
Really well said. We talk so often on the podcast about, yeah, this idea of time freedom. So similar to time wealth, but it really does seem that as a culture, folks are realizing that what society taught them, or even our beloved alma mater, or the formal school system of, yeah, this kind of grind and hustle doesn't necessarily lead us to where we want to go, whether it's personally or professionally. So I really love that insight.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And I think that because I had that experience, because I learned that the space, the time, the abject boredom sometimes can create so much more latitude
mm,
for connections to be made, to soften the neural pathways, to
right.
make new things. So there was another class at Rassier called Creativity and Innovation.
Okay.
And it forces you to put two things together that just do not match, and to make something of those two things, and to make it a viable thought and a viable idea. But when you're in that grind, when you're in that spin of what you're used to, you don't have the luxury of combining things that you never thought of.
Mm.
You don't have the luxury of reaching out to people that you never thought, like the things that just drop in. I call them shower moments, right? Where you have your shower moment shouldn't just be when you're in the shower,
Yeah, that's
right?
so funny.
And I think that's, coming around to what you do, Amy, that's what you supply people. And what you do is that you supply that passive income effect, that ability to have something that's generating for you. So you can have that space, you can have that time. I just think that so many founders and CEOs prescribe to the antithesis of the 4-hour work week, and we'll just call it the maxed out work week.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's almost a prickly feeling. Like, well, what would I do? What would I do then? What would I do with myself?
yes.
And I think that's the exciting thing. I recently had the pleasure of going to Hawaii. And in Hawaii, I didn't visit one of the more bustling islands. I went to Kauai, which is
Mm,
known as the Garden Island.
yeah,
And the reason why it's called the Garden Island is because it rains multiple times a day there unexpectedly.
yeah.
And that rain, I could be out at the pool and then it would just start pelting. And then I had to make a decision. Was I going to sit under the umbrella and wait for it to stop raining? Or was I going to go hunker down, back in the room, which I had
Right.
a lovely room with an ocean view. It was beautiful and I am blessed. But also, I got really agitated. And I even like pulled out my phone. I started like, I don't know why everybody loves Hawaii so much. I really don't like Hawaii. Hawaii is overrated. And I started just ranting.
Oh my gosh.
And then I had this shift. And the shift was this. The shift was I have been talking about innovation and creating new and creating comfort and discomfort for 10 years now. And it didn't really hurt this idea that I was catching up on the TV show Hacks when this happened. And I said, I'm a hack. I'm not walking my walk here.
Mm.
And so I allowed the boredom. I allowed that piece to just kind of fall in. And when I did, I was like, wait a second. And I wrote my next workshop. Like, and it was a different energy, right? It was not an energy of, I have this to do. This is on my checklist. I must do this. It was, oh, this is what belief means. This is what bias means. This is how it impacts innovation and all of that. So I think that time wealth is one of the most important yet most overlooked aspects of wealth because that's where legacies are born.
Yeah.
That's where innovation is born. That's where creativity is born. That's where so much is born. A woman, when she is pregnant, has 9 months of downtime, ideally to create. So, this idea that academia has of the sabbatical, right?
Mhm.
This idea can translate. And I think the more passive income you have, the more light work you have, the more high impact, high reward, meaningful work that you have, the more time wealth you actually have as well, which is that birthing place for innovation.
I'm curious how you would advise founders and CEOs to kind of build this into their company culture because, with especially companies that are public, their need to drive the bottom line, drive the top line, show, constant, never ending improvement, understanding the value of time wealth, of boredom, of, this process that you so brilliantly articulate. If someone's listening that's wondering, how in the world can I bake this in given kind of the current culture? What does that look like? Do you have any tips or tricks, insight there?
Well, it's a this and that,
Okay.
not a this or that.
Okay.
And that's the top innovation mistake I see made is that we are tempted to think in polarities.
Yes.
We're tempted to think it's either all grind, all push, all go, or all everyone's bored and just waiting for an idea to come and everyone's super bored. And that's the almost nightmare fantasy that founders and CEOs cook up when they think about something like that. Like, I can't have everyone bored. What are you talking about? I can't do that. But it's in the small things, like embracing remote and hybrid work. You don't
Oh,
have to do anything that is so grand. The company that I worked with in LA, they had video game machines because it was a video game,
yeah.
right? So you look at ways you can provide a brand experience for your innovators. And by the way, everyone from accounting to the actual innovation department is an innovator in your company.
Right.
But it's not just about the HR side of this. I want to take it out of the, oh, what could HR do realm and look at operations. Really look at how success is measured in a company. How is voice actually rewarded in a company, in the actual culture of the company?
Mm,
And the actual culture of a company is what happens on the floor, not what's written on the wall.
well said.
So, what happens when the founder and CEO is not around to guide the vision? Because founders and CEOs, that's your job. Your job is to guide vision, man the ship, set the heading, and let the crew do their work, right? But what happens when the captain goes down into the galley? That's your culture.
Mm.
That is your culture. And if that culture rewards Going home to take care of your family? Fantastic, great, if that is getting results for you.
Right.
So in the braver innovation model, you will look at 6 elements that drive innovation, and they drive innovation surrounded by any change model. You can hook this up to ADKAR, Cotter, 7S, McKinsey, any of the models. It is a breathing way to understand belief and the biases they create, how, when you conduct research to understand something, how your bias and belief can actually affect what you look for, what you seek, you will find,
Right.
right? The actions that you think you're going to take, but then you map those out. And then you, by people, process, systems, policies, cultures, and then you take those actions and you actually validate them versus taking action on them. You actually ask the questions of, is this real? Checking your mental models around those, looking at, the work of Peter Senge and his work around mental models. You check those actively and validate them so that when you craft an experiment, like how do we add more space for creativity, innovation space, whatever. When you craft that experiment, you know what you're actually walking into. And then you know your result. So what does success looks like? What does it look like to actually win? Because if you don't know what it actually looks like to win, you're sunk from the beginning. If you just set out on a ship toward nowhere, you
Right.
might hit land.
Yeah.
You might hit land, but you also might run out of food and your crew might also die. So if you think about results and knowing that, and this is why this is not a linear model that I've created, this is
Yeah.
a breathing model. This model breathes around current existing frameworks because with the volatility of AI right now and volatility of other external environmental threats, linear standardized models are not enough.
Mhm.
They're not enough. You have to have a system of inquiry. You have to have a system. And that all boils down to what happens when that captain leaves the deck. That's what it all boils down to. And when those two things align, when the captain can walk away, when the captain has that time freedom, that time wealth to move between quadrants. So we all dance across 4 quadrants throughout our career. There's the employee side of it where we're somebody else gives us something to do. We have a job description. There's self-employed,
Mhm.
where we've given ourselves a job description, but our business absolutely requires us. There's the owner mindset where I own this. There are some touch points, but there are fewer. And then there's the investor quadrant where I can step away.
Yeah.
And you can have an investor mentality while still being in your seat, while you're still founder and CEO and you're still in your seat, yet you have that crafted environment where you can leave the deck. Things do keep running. And I think the lack of knowledge on how to create this, how to experiment into this, is why so many people are replacing individuals with AI right now,
Yeah.
because at least process is certain. And they harken back to Deming. They harken back to Deming and say, no, the people are the process. And if you can replace the people with a system, that's so much the better. I'm like, that is not what Deming was saying. What Deming was saying is that people are a part of the system, so they deserve to be listened to because that variable can impact your system. So when you think about time wealth, it's not just about vacations and showing up late and being able to putter until 10 a.m. like Jeff Bezos does every morning and all of those little luxuries. Yes, that's part of it. But the other part of it is you have cultivated such a trust and such a psychological safety within your team that you can do that. And you can continue to make that money. You can continue to have that passive income, that successful company without you accruing gray hair.
Have you ever thought about having multiple streams of income? Instead of relying on just one stream of income where you're trading your time for money, how would you like to free up more of your time and live a more abundant life? As a listener of the show, you're invited to attend one of our upcoming trainings where I'll give you an inside look into how you can add passive income and get all the other perks of recession-resistant real estate investing without the headaches of being a landlord. I'll also be sharing some hidden mistakes to avoid and the criteria I personally look for when evaluating potential investment opportunities. To reserve your seat for free, go to sylviscapital.com/webinar. Again, that special link to reserve your seat for free is sylviscapital.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you on the training. And now back to the show. Every CEO and founder's dream. I mean, that is such a great North Star. I'm really curious, Dr. Dye, how often you see companies and founders and CEOs functioning like this. I think I know the answer, but how often is this an actual reality?
Oh, it is for the few. It is for the few. And I know a few who
Okay.
do. I know a few who do, and they have built cultures like that where they have translated their vision so clearly to the operational line that they have installed basically mini CEOs. And they trust
Ah,
those mini CEOs,
okay.
MINI. So they're not CEOs by title, but they're CEOs by heart. And so you have your CMO and your CFO and your CTO and that sub C level, but you also translate that vision and that leadership. And it's so well communicated, it's so transparent that it goes all the way down the line to where even the line cook feels empowered to speak up.
Yeah.
That's where I see it. That's where I see it. Where I don't see it, and what is really dangerous is the companies that are saying, I really need a decision model that echoes me so that people can type in and they can ask me anything, anyway, but it's AI. Can you build that for me? That is so dangerous.
Yeah.
That is so dangerous. And it is happening. It
Huh.
is so dangerous. It is happening. And I did have someone ask me to do it for them.
Wow.
And I responded back, and I have no problem guiding the innovation around knowledge bases
Yeah.
and around closed loop, safe systems where knowledge can be kept. But when the intention is to abdicate decision making
Yeah.
to AI, I've seen it be detrimental. It's put two of my clients out of business.
Do you
Last
guys,
year, I had one of the worst years I have ever had because of not me being replaced by AI,
right.
founders and CEOs trying to replace themselves.
Hmm. In pursuit of this time
And
wealth, do you
pursuit of
think?
time wealth.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're all chasing the same thing, right? They're all chasing the same thing. We want profitability. We want the ability to be free.
Right.
But to abdicate that decision making to AI to say, I want to build a model that replaces me because I want to sell this company, or I want to retire, or I want to do this. I think it is a mortal mistake. And
Yeah.
let's not forget, we are mortal.
Goodness. Yeah. Hopefully we're not forgetting that. Gosh, that's really fascinating. It does really seem like, AI can be such a blessing in many ways, but there are ways that can just derail things. And just because it's there doesn't necessarily mean that we're using it correctly in the right spaces. And I can imagine your guidance in that respect is invaluable.
I think it's important to understand, again, it's not a polarity.
Mm,
It's not an AI
right.
is all bad. It's
Right.
not AI is the panacea and all good and going to bring about the next renaissance. So so where does it sit in
Yeah.
between for you?
Yeah. Right.
Where does it sit in between? And how does it answer real needs
Yeah.
within the organization versus, oh, we've got to do AI. Everybody else is doing AI. So when you innovate from this space of everyone else is doing it, you are not innovating. You are following. Innovation happens in that blank space. When someone looks at you, the founder CEOs, you know the moment, we all have it, when you ideated your company and you had at least one person turn to you and go, "You're nuts." Like, have you lost your ever loving mind? What do you think you are doing? You have X stable job. You have this. You have, I absolutely had the people who are saying, "You're going to do what? You're going to build a company while you're doing your master's program."
Yeah.
That's a great way to fail. You
Oh,
know, when you hear things like that, you have a choice, right? But if you're a current founder or CEO, you're one of those who said, "I'll show you. I've got something here."
right.
But what happens along the line as we go into 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of business is we start self protecting. We start saying, "I don't want to break the baby." When the fact of
Mm,
the matter is, the baby's in college and you're not going to break the baby.
great analogy.
Right?
Yeah.
The company has matured. The baby is in college, yet you're holding back, you're withholding. And so what do you tell the college kid to do? Well, what is everybody else majoring in?
Right.
What is everybody else doing? What do you mean you want to take a gap year?
Mm,
Is that what everybody else is doing?
right.
So when you start thinking from that standpoint, you're already doing status quo thinking. You are already conforming.
Uh-huh.
And that conformity is so dangerous because there is signal and then there is noise. And sometimes when people are moving really fast towards something, it could just be the loudest noise.
Right. Truly.
And your signal is going to be way different than somebody else's signal. And we talk about competition, you talk about strategy, and you talk about blue ocean versus red ocean. You're swimming straight into that red ocean if you're in status quo
Yes.
because everybody's there. Where's that big, beautiful blue ocean? Where's that big, beautiful flat water?
Yes.
Where's that place where you go snorkeling and you dip down and you see the moray eels? Where's that cool place? Because that's where you want to be. That's where you want to be. And that's where you want to guide your ship to versus the place where they say where the water is dark, there's sharks.
Ooh.
So if you're ever in the ocean and there's a big dark pot of water, pretty likely there's going to be some sharks there. I actually saw a shark on my last snorkel trip.
Oh my gosh. In
And a
Kauai?
reef shark swim straight underneath me, not in Kauai,
Oh,
but in off the shore in Key West. I'm a
wow.
little nuts. I did 2 islands in a row. I did Little Palm Island, which is a beautiful private island off the coast of Key West,
Mhm.
Little Torch Key, Little Palm Island, and then I was home one day and went to Kauai. One interesting aspect of what I do is I travel with my founders and my CEOs.
Mm,
So I believe so deeply that living life matters, that blank space is important, that blank space is a catalyst for innovation, that I've traveled with them. So my executives were there on Little Palm Island, and I was there with them. And when the thing drops in, you need at that moment a couple of things happen in companies. An executive will go away. And when they come back, it's like, oh my God, get ready, batten down the hatches. There's a whole bunch of ideas. We just got to go. Right. So that's one. And that's a really great way to drive an organization into change chaos, what I call change chaos.
mm. I see
where
that.
you're changing something so quickly. And it's not just change fatigue is where people get tired, but change chaos is where things actually break. And when you get a really inspired, really motivated founder and CEO, and they come back from a space where a bunch of stuff has dropped in, that can be very, very jarring, very, very jarring operationally, because those directions need to be clear, they need to be translated, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's like, get ready, go. What is it? Ready, fire, aim.
Yes,
Right.
truly.
Right. So what I do is I will travel with my founders and my CEOs where they are going, and they let life happen. I went to a wedding one time, and I was actually putting together something with one of my clients on a moving bus with a wedding party going to Venice, Italy.
Oh
That
my
was one of
God.
my favorite career moments right there. If I had to, like, look up the highlight reel of career highlights, I would say that that was amazing, because here we were barreling toward Venice. We're calling staff members from the back of the bus who had also been brought on the trip because we knew they were involved with this merger. And we just made things happen. And to have someone in that quiet space to just ask questions,
Yes.
to just do the action mapping and the validation, but not the experiment, not the action just yet, but to capture some of those things as they come and then have an action plan when you come out. That is really a beautiful thing. It's how things get done, and it's not how things get done often. My first experience with it was flying around with a professional speaker, and she would we were flying around on her private plane, and we were just spitballing ideas for her keynote, and then she just rest. And then in the middle of that rest, she would wake up and go, Diane. Almost like Devil Wears Prada style, right? Diane. And I come to the front of the plane, and she's like, I have this idea for this product and I want to do this. And could you research that and do that? And let's see if we could put that together. At the time, I was her ghostwriter and had ghost written one of her books. And she's like, I've got this idea. And, da, da, da. And so that translated and kind of grew throughout the career into what I do now. So now I really prefer these high impact engagements because it gives me the time wealth. And that's what I realized in Hawaii, is that here I was not with a client, enjoying this time wealth that I have. And I wasn't drinking my own Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I was looking at everything about Kauai that was like, this wasn't how I expected it to be. I expected this to be a different experience because I have had different experience. And I just had a different experience in Florida. And, you know, and that's the trap, right? Because we start to innovate and we're like, this is supposed to be great. This is going to be great. This is going to be great. And then things start breaking. Why? Because to innovate, things have to break. I had to lose my job to start
Right.
my firm.
Yeah.
I mean, your story, you had to have illness to have greatness.
Yeah.
And it's the avoidance of those and what we do during those times. In my workbook, Creating Critical Opportunity, which the OG text is still there on Amazon, but it's a workbook for a reason. It's a workbook because I wanted people to do the work. I wanted people to learn, to grow, to understand in real time. And so that's what I was doing in Hawaii. As I was exposed, and the people I was actually traveling with fellow USC alumni as well. Old school
Great.
alumni, one who just actually wrote a new book, Luigi, about Luigi Mangione.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm. Yeah. So he just released the book in November, I believe, and through, I'm not sure which publisher, but
Mm.
seeing him write, seeing him contribute in his way, right? Thought, you know what? No. take your own medicine. So my message to founders and CEOs is, remember when you started your company?
Mm,
Remember when you were full of such fire and vim and vigor, and I'll show you, and what obstacle? I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to grow from this, and let's do this. And somewhere along the way, you started treating your high school or your college student company like a baby, and protecting and holding and coddling and being afraid and saying, shh, shh, don't cry. Shh, don't cry. When what really needs to happen when you're older is you need to speak up. You need to speak up. You need to be seen. Sometimes the opinion is totally unpopular.
mm,
And that too is okay because everything is data. Everything is data. Everything is information. But if you yourself are not in the space to receive, and I do believe that's what time wealth gives you.
right.
Time wealth gives you that space to receive. If you're not in that space to receive, you are going to miss the moment.
Agree. Yeah.
Mm.
So well said. Dr. Diane Dye, this was incredible. Thank you so much for dropping so much wisdom. I love your analogies, your ability to bring in stories to really illustrate the powerful concepts that you have. If folks want to get in touch with you, which I'm sure they will, can they best reach out to you?
Please reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn, you can search me out, Dr. Diane Dye. It is me in my DMs, not a bot, not an executive assistant, ever,
Thank you.
ever, ever.
Thank you.
And if you're curious about the company, go to peopleriskconsulting.com. I have a few things on there you can take advantage of. One is my Braver Innovation Strategy Generator, where you can put your real situation into the generator and come up with a plan of your own. Please do DM me on
Wow.
LinkedIn with your plan. I'm so curious about what you innovate and come up with. There's also a change readiness assessment, as well as an other end of the change, is it going to stick kind of assessment there for you. All those are free resources for you, all at peopleriskconsulting.com.
Incredible. We'll make sure to put those in the show notes too. So people are multitasking. They can easily, drop in and click those links and get in touch with you. I would encourage everyone, please reach out. Dr. Dye, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And hopefully we can have you on again to continue the conversation.
I would love that. I would
Yeah.
absolutely love that, Amy.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that will empower you on your journey towards abundance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the secrets to an abundant life too. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Amy Sylvis. Keep striving for your goals, nurturing your relationships, and embracing the adventure that is life. Until next time, we wish you an abundantly fulfilling day.